When you look at developing nations like India, they have a lot more appetite for cloud-based services generally because they don't necessarily have the infrastructure or the legacy data and legacy applications that companies in developed nations do. So when you think about companies that are either just starting up in India or that have been in India for a long time, software as a service is extremely attractive. There's no upfront investment. Time to market is immediate. And normally, the cloud-based application developers or application providers, the software as a service companies, have developed an optimized application. So you kind of get best in breed available right away. Well, banks, financial services companies are hyper vigilant about security. And the thing about the cloud, the biggest challenge to adoption is the lack of security or the perceived lack of security. People don't want data stolen. People don't want money stolen. So banks certainly are not going to be an early adopter of cloud-based services, especially software as a service. Now, infrastructure as a service is a different story because to the extent that people can get infrastructure and pay for what they use, it represents a huge amount of savings potentially. And the security risks aren't as great as they would be in a software environment or if you were relying on a vendor to provide you the software environment. People are very confused about what the cloud is, and I see that in India. I did a session yesterday at NASSCOM about the cloud, and we had some very distinguished panelists who are experts in cloud computing. And the audience in general was there to figure out what is the cloud. And the point that all of the speakers made was that there really is no great definition about what a cloud is today and what a private cloud is and what a public cloud is. The private cloud is a cloud that somebody like Amazon or Google builds, and they invest in the security, and they, in many cases, guarantee you security if you're going to work with them. So it's theoretically and probably actually much safer to work within a private cloud than it would be in a public cloud. Now, again, developing nations are investing in building public clouds to encourage growth in industry. Right? In the United States, you don't see us developing or spending a lot of money on public clouds because companies are relying on these private vendors like Google and Amazon and folks like that. So I think in India you're going to see this development of a public cloud. I think you're already seeing it. But I think you will also see very clever entrepreneurs, as the Indians are, start to develop their own services and capability to capitalize on the really still booming Indian market. The ball is in the vendor's court, and that's why that private cloud is theoretically safer than any kind of public cloud. I think people are still, even though Amazon and Google will say that, I think large companies are still very nervous about allowing or abdicating that responsibility to a third-party service providers. And I think in the early days of outsourcing, Indian outsourcing, customers were similarly scared about the security of their systems if they were doing business with a provider in India. And obviously we've gotten over that. And I think what you'll see in the cloud, in the private cloud, is that the vendors are reputable enough and large enough and are willing to provide guarantees around the security of the data so that people will very quickly get over this paranoia about the security, at least to the extent that Google and Amazon and companies like that are operating. There are a couple of good examples, and it helps people to understand. One of the things that UST Global does is we have a large Salesforce.com development and support team. So we have clients, large clients, that use UST to support Salesforce.com. Now, when I first got to UST from Forrester Research, I thought, why would we have a big, huge Salesforce.com team? Because Salesforce.com is a software as a service application. It's a plug-in, play, turn the key on, and it's ready. But for large U.S.-based customers that have massive amounts of legacy data and applications that need to integrate with Salesforce, it's a huge job. They can't do it on their own. They have to have a third-party service provider integrate all the existing data and test the integration to make sure it's properly functioning. And by the way, large companies always have to customize software, right? Even in the cloud. The other thing is companies who use multiple types of cloud-based applications need a service aggregator to aggregate all the different services that they're buying from the different cloud providers. And for one of our customers, we're just beginning to do that. It's a very new area. Finally, customers that are using infrastructure as a service pay based on how much infrastructure they use. Some software applications that use the infrastructure are poorly architected for their platforms, and so they use a lot of infrastructure that they may not need to. One of the things we do for a couple of our clients is performance testing and re-architecting of applications to use the infrastructure more economically so that it costs our clients less to buy infrastructure as a service from a third-party provider. So there's really cool stuff going on in this space, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for service providers like UST Global.